Hey Rock and Metal Guardians, it's Dane and happy 4th of July. Welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to talk to you about my top 25 favorite concept albums of all time. So let's jump right in. At number 25 is the album SF Sorrow by the band The Pretty Things. Their first album was in 1965. They started off as a blues-based band and then made their way into a psychedelia progressive rock band. And 1968's SF Sorrow is all of that. It's a story about a young man's life from birth to death, which is an allegory for all of us, very similar to, if you're familiar with the Middle Ages play Everyman. So it's quite good. Also, there's a piece on here that sounds very similar to Pete Townshend's introduction in Pinball Wizard. This album came first, and people have argued as to whether or not Pete Townshend was influenced by this. Give it a listen and tell me what you think in the comments below. Number 24 is Captain Fantastic and the Brown Dirt Cowboy by Elton John. And this is a thematically rich concept album, not so much story. It's a little bit of both, actually. It's about Elton John's working together with Bernie Taupin, and you have the song Riding, which is the emphasis on that, but you have some other pieces in there, biographical stuff. Someone Saved My Life Tonight. It ends with Philadelphia Freedom if you have the bonus track version. That song is not part of the concept. It also has a nice Beatles cover, Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds, and I love his version. So coming in, so that was 24. Coming in at 23 is Thick as a Brick by Jethro Tull. I wish it had more guitar on it. It does have a lot of guitar, but I'm kind of greedy for guitar as a music fan, so I wish it had a little bit more. The flute at times can be a little obtrusive, and well, it's Jethro Tull. What do you expect? Fair enough, but for me personally, I would like on this album a little bit more guitar. So make of that what you will. Coming in at 25, 24, 23. Yeah, 22 is Blue Oyster Cult's Imaginos, an album that has a very deep history because of Alan Bouchard and Sandy Pearlman, who wrote a lot of the material with the band through most of their career. And there's this codex or manuscript that the two, or especially Pearlman, worked on together that ties into this Lovecraftian conspiracy theory thing. And there are bits and nuggets of phrases throughout their discography, is my understanding. If you do some research on it, you'll find how mysterious the background to this album is. It's also quite heavy for a Blue Oyster Cult. It's probably their heaviest. Anyway, I just love this album. So that's Imaginos, number 22. 21, Gretchen Goes to Nebraska by King's X. The drummer, Jerry Gaskell, wrote a short story, and the album revolves around that. And my favorite song, it's my favorite album by them, is Over My Head, which was a MTV video as well. Just a great song and a great album. Number 20, have some props, not all of them. Seventh Son of a Seventh Son. Like so many concept albums, the end is the same as the beginning, so it comes full circle, just like Thick as a Brick, or similar to Thick as a Brick. If you don't know, Iron Maiden, well, Bruce Dickinson is a big Jethro Tull fan. Do I love this album? No, but I really like it, so it makes my list. Not Iron Maiden at its best, but it's quite good. I don't have a prop for this. The Dark Saga by Iced Earth. If you like that progressive metal, that operatic kind of vocals, if you're not familiar with Iced Earth, I highly suggest give this a listen. You won't be disappointed if you like that type of music. Number 18 is Welcome to My Nightmare, the first of many nightmare-themed concept albums that Alice Cooper keeps revisiting the Stephen character in the follow-up. Alice Cooper Goes to Hell. You have The Last Temptation. You have Along Came a Spider. I think there's one, Welcome to My Nightmare 2, which I really like. The interesting one from how it stands apart from the rest is The Last Temptation, because at this point Alice Cooper has become a Christian, and so that ends on a more positive note than the rest of these are. Just a great album to put on during Halloween or anytime. Next is number 17, Quadrophenia by The Who. There's a little bit of filler on here. Starts with I Am the Sea and the Lovely, The Real Me, a great heavy song by them, and it ends with a beautiful Love Reign Over Me, probably one of their best songs, if not their best song, in my humble opinion. Next is The Lamb Lies Down on Broadway by Genesis. My only nitpicky part about this is, for the longest time, I loved the last song, and now I don't like it that much anymore. Anyway, but it's still a great album. It's phenomenal. Except I wish the way the last song ends was a little less upbeat, or it could stay upbeat, but some of the tone is just wrong for the rest of the album. But that's just my humble opinion. So anyway, 16, Genesis, The Lamb Lies Down on Broadway. Number 15 is Clockwork Angels. As I said before in a previous video or two, there's two or three tracks on here I don't care for, but overall this works as a concept album. The story is great. Most of the songs, or 75% of the songs, are phenomenal, so gotta have that in my list. 14, The Downward Spiral. This is the 2 CD version. Has remixes, B-sides, demos, and not album tracks. I'm not usually a big fan of demos, but for this, I really like what's on that second disc here. And Trent Reznor, dealing with his issues and problems as an artist, and some other biographical stuff. So if you're not familiar with this, I would definitely check this out. Very avant-garde, but I'm a big avant-garde person in many ways. Okay, so that was number 14. Coming at number 13 is Tommy by The Who. Need I say more? Don't have a prop for this next one. Number 12, The Grand Illusion by Styx. While not a story per se, it's still a concept album because thematically it deals with an existential crisis. How do we struggle for meaning in a world overburdening us with materialism and consumerism? And I just love The Castle Walls and Man in the Wilderness. Those are my two favorite songs. I also love the heavy Miss America. The whole album is great. Sometimes I can do without Come Sail Away, but overall it's still a good song. The keys played by Dennis DeYoung is just phenomenal. Still in his period, he's just a great keys player. So, and sings really well. Anyway, and Tommy Shaw, wow, just a great addition to the band on this and the previous album, Crystal Ball. So, one of my favorite guitar players of all time. Okay, so that was number 12. Number 11 is El Dorado by ELO. As you know, ELO heavily influenced by the Beatles, especially on this album. You can hear the Beatles influence, especially on this one. Start to finish, you gotta listen to this one start to finish. I think anyway. Just to love this album. I know people who don't like ELO but love this album as an example. So that tells you how influential and inspiring this piece is. Again, I owe my love to ELO for. I give a gratitude for my love of ELO comes from my mom, who got me interested in them. Anyway, so number 10 is the King Diamond album Them. Just great production, great everything, especially the guitar, the double guitars, the twin guitars, heavy metal guitars is just phenomenal on this piece. Another great Halloween album, although I listened to it outside of Halloween. Number 9 is another King Diamond album, Abigail. Slightly better than Them. These two are nice companion pieces. Same reason I like them. Just great all-around production. The guitar playing is just phenomenal. Okay, so, and then next is another Styx album, Paradise Theater. A story about the rise and fall of the Paradise Theater in, I think, the 30s or 40s in Chicago, if I'm not mistaken. And you have so many parts that make up a wonderful story. Again, a nice listen from start to finish. You have a couple reprises from earlier songs, and then from thematically, like Grand Illusion, dealing with internal and external conflicts, and then how you deal with that. And one of the songs towards the end deals with, well, at least we have each other, and so that, speaking to his beloved is just a marvelous way that just gives me goosebumps. So just a great inspirational album all around. Number 7 is The Rise and Fall of Ziggy Stardust and the Spiders of Mars. Just a great album. One of my favorite albums of all time. I love this altogether, but there's something to be said about Lady Stardust, Star, Hang On To Yourself, Ziggy Stardust, Suffragette City, Rock and Roll Suicide ends the album just great. Of course, you have the wonderful Moon Age, Daydream, and Starman. This is practically a greatest hits album by itself. I think a lot of albums you can say are that, but that's one of them. Here is Pink Floyd's Wish You Were Here, and you get the book ends of Shine On You Crazy Diamond, parts 1 through 5 to begin, and ends with parts 6 and 9 of that. And in between, we have Welcome to the Machine, Have a Cigar, and In Wish You Were Here, the title track. Just a phenomenal album. And that was number 6. Coming in at number 5, Pink Floyd's Dark Side of the Moon. Can't say, I don't have to say anything about that one, I don't think. Number 4, Queen 2, a fantasy piece. You have song titles like White Queen, Ogre Battle, The Fairy Feller's Master Stroke, great song, March of the Black Queen, and you get at the conclusion of the album the full version of Seven Seas of Rye. Just a wonderful piece, album altogether. And then so that was number 4. Coming in at number 3 is The Wall by Pink Floyd, 1979. I don't think there's any filler on here, despite what David Gilmour says. I remember commenting in an interview about what's all this Vera stuff. He didn't care for that. I love it. It's part of the story. It makes sense if you know where Roger Waters is coming from. This was originally supposed to be definitely. He was considering doing this as a solo project, but the rest of the band, as you know, didn't have any material. They were dealing with writer's block, and then so he suggested this, or the pros and cons of hitchhiking, and he made the right choice by choosing this one instead. Coming in at number 2, another Pink Floyd album, Animals. This is my favorite Pink Floyd album of all time. 5 tracks only, bookended by Pigs on the Wing 1 and 2, which are the first and 5th tracks. Then Dogs, Pigs, and then Sheep. Dogs is arguably one of my favorite, if not my favorite, Pink Floyd song of all time. I forget what album it is on, but I have it in MP3 format. There's a version of Pigs on the Wing parts 1 and 2 that are combined by guitar solo by Snowy White from Thin Lizzy. If you can find that, let me know. It's beautiful that way too. And then finally, coming in at number 1, the magnum opus of the band Queensryche, Operation Mindcrime. Begins where it ends. I remember now, right? Jeff Tate stepping into the role of his creation, Nicky, right? The conspiracy, a protagonist dealing with a conspiracy to change the world politically and religiously, and sort of religiously, and dealing with love and so many matters that make what makes up the human condition. So anyway, if you're not familiar with this, I know some of you are, give this a listen. Don't get the sequel, it's terrible. But anyway, I appreciate you listening, and happy 4th of July again.